Good day to you, viewers and listeners, and welcome to another interesting edition of Business and Economy, where we focus on issues around economic sustainability as we take a look at disparity in remuneration of public servants, its desirability or otherwise. I am Ile Emeje, your host. Remuneration constitutes an integral part of the success of any organization, as it motivates employees to put in more effort in their workplace and in their services, an organization which reflects positively on the efficiency and productivity of the organization. It is an important motivator in the workplace, an important process in human resource management, covering economic rewards in form of wages and salaries, and various forms of non-wage economic payments called fringe benefits, indirect compensation, or supplementary pay. In many settings, remuneration is a major component of the compensation process, which is aimed at reimbursing employees for their work and motivating them to perform to the best of their abilities. Here in Nigeria, the terms and conditions of service of civil servants are determined through a legislative process, but the salaries and wages in the public sector generally depend on the financial strength of the country. Past structural adjustments or reforms granted liberty to departments and agencies minus ministries to pay wages according to their liquidity, leading to discrepancy in salaries of civil servants. Meanwhile, about 80% of industrial actions, as we call them strikes, experienced in Nigeria are attributed to pay dissatisfaction. These industrial actions engender the economic growth of the country. Now, the questions that tend to continue agitating the minds of many Nigerians are whether pay satisfaction is usually based on the perspective of the workers in an organization, on what is of intrinsic or extrinsic value, or whether two jobs with equal value should be paid equally regardless of who fills them, without the influence of gender, religion, race, age, ethnicity, social class, and state of origin. On this edition of Business and Economy, public analyst Mr. Abraham Olakpade is my guest, coming on after the business news. We'll be back shortly. The Executive Director and Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Export Promotion Council, NEPC, Dr. Ezra Yakusak, in his remarks, noted on reasons for the campaign.
We came out, the staff of Nigerian Export Promotion Council, to exercise and also create awareness on this campaign. And our venue is the center of Nigeria. That's right here on Kadape Hill, Aso Hill. We took this campaign here to create more awareness to Nigerians. But another essence is that, you need to exercise. I realize that to keep fit, to keep the staff fit, to keep them working, for them to continue on this campaign, they have to be fit, they have to be well. And so we are here to exercise and to create awareness because you need to exercise to survive, just as we need to export to survive. So that's the essence of this campaign.
He further reiterated impact.
So far, so good. This campaign has been successful, and if you ask me how successful, I will tell you clearly that the non-oilers performance have increased over the years, or over the last 2 years we've started this campaign. There's more awareness, and the performance is increasing every day. And apart from that, we're seeing new products into the non-oil export basket. Products like sorghum, orange peel, and many other products that are coming up on board. These products hitherto were not even exported, but right now they have been exported, and it's due to our campaign that this is happening.
Speaking on behalf of the members, Chairman of the Commerce and Industry Correspondents Association of Nigeria, SICAN, Mr. Ifeanyi Onuba, attributed the event to keeping fit for an improved productivity and wealth creation.
Health is wealth, and one of the things that we do as journalists is to inform the public about what happens in the society, and we hardly take time out to exercise for ourselves and to keep ourselves healthy. This for us is an event that provides us the platform to exercise ourselves, to exercise our body, and to also keep ourselves fit and our mind fit for the job that we do.
The height of the program is the walk, exercise, and aerobics.
Okay, I don't do tea for us.
While commending the Nigerian Export Promotion Council for its continuous efforts to increasing the nation's export base, participants, including the top management and staff of the council and members of SECAN, affirmed that this indeed is a welcome development in keeping body and soul together. Ile Emeje, ASO Television News. All right, our guest, Mr. Abraham Olakpade, is here to discuss on the topic, discrepancy in remuneration package of civil servants, its desirability or otherwise. Mr. Olakpade, it's good to have you again on the program.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
Okay, given our topic, a lot of people may wish to understand what exactly is discrepancy in remuneration and what led to it, at least for our purpose in Nigeria.
For our purpose here, the discrepancy we're talking about a public service now, talking about the federal civil service now, is just simple. It means if I'm on level 7 in one MDA, someone in level 7 and MDA and another one in level 7 and MDA might be earning different take-homes.
Okay.
So now, it means that it's not a unified that because we are both on level 7 federal civil service, we're going to take home the same thing at the end of the month.
Okay.
It means your own salary might be ×3 of mine, and we studied the same thing. We have the same qualification, we have the same years of experience, but because my own MDA is perceived as maybe more productive or lucrative than yours. Let me use lucrative now.
So there are some that are not.
Yes, because it's not really about it's not really about productivity. That's why we need to go to the historical perspective of it.
Okay.
It's not really about productivity. You know, just Nigeria economy was very good at a point, and everything was moving well. In the First Republic, the military takeover. The first military takeover, the economy was so well that at a point in time, a former military head of state said, Nigeria's problem is not the money, it's how to spend it. At the time, yes, that was at the time. So, and even during that time, there was a lot of money. There was even giving out to Doji's Award, giving out to civil servant and all this. So, by 77, we had FESTAC, Festival of Art and Culture. And if you look at the trajectory, you will see that immediately after 77, the Nigerian economy started going into decline. We started having a lot of challenges in our economy. So many people said there was a lot of mismanagement during that time, a lot of importations for FESTAC, a lot of things happened, mismanagement generally. So our economy started showing decline from 77.
1977?
Yes, from 77 after FESTAC. Now, like that, we had a Second Republic started, brought in the civilian, our new president, the former president, Shehu Shagari, came in. Things did not improve. A lot of allegation of mismanagement, a lot of corruption allegation, and we're borrowing to fund ourselves. That was when we started borrowing to fund ourselves. That's where I'm going. So we started borrowing to fund ourselves. He won the second term. So when he won the second term, that was cut short. It was truncated by the military again. So the military came over in 83. When they took over, it was because one of the major reasons why they said they took over was because there was a lot of corruption. The country was broke, and they had a solution to fix it. So that was 83, 85. There was another coup took place in 1985. The same reason: too much hardship in the land. The government did not have the solution to it. We have the solution. So now in 1985, our debt burden was very high. So to service our debt became a problem. So now, to service our debt, it means if you can't service our debt, you can't take new ones. That's just the simple logic with it. If you can't service what you are owing me, so how do you, and we needed more. So during that time, the money lenders, IMF, World Bank and some of the other ones, they started telling us that we need to readjust our economy so that we can free up some funds to be able to service our debt.
Okay.
Now, let me at this point make something clear. People used to think IMF, World Bank are evil. No, they are not evil. A lot of Africans, generally, not only in Nigeria now, a lot of Africans, they believe IMF, World Bank, they are imperialism agents, they are evil, they don't want development for Africa. No. They are money lenders. They are not charity organizations like UN and all some other subsidiaries of UN. IMF, World Bank was created after the Second World War to help nations rebuild, especially European nations to rebuild after the Second World War. So they were to give soft loans that this country, that the European country needed, and some other countries also, so they can rebuild. So that what happened after the First World War will not happen, will not repeat itself. So let us make it clear that IMF, World Bank, and other money lenders are into business. They are not charity organizations. And what is paramount to a money lender is, how will you repay me?
Are you paying me back?
Are you paying me back? My money. It's not a dash. So now they started coming in and say, the way our economy is running and the way it's structured, we cannot have enough money to service our debt. Not only we, many African nations, the depth of the burden of the debt was too much on us. So the money lenders came in and told us that you need to free up some money. You need to restructure. You need to cut public spending. You need to retrench your staffs. You need to. They are money lenders. Let's be sincere with ourselves. Don't forget the good book also said that what the rich rules over the poor. The borrower is the servant of the lender. Proverbs 22:7. The good book said that. So if I lend you money, I have the right over what you even hit. If I'm your money lender. Even just look at a small fraction. I don't know, maybe if you're involved with microfinance lending or even commercial bank lending. When they lend you money, when you can't pay and you want to restructure it, they come in and begin to give you conditions. I've been involved with some of my own friends. They took money for some business purposes. The thing did not go as planned. So the money lenders, your lenders will come in. They begin to give you different options. Let us make it clear now that what is germane to a money lender? He doesn't care about anything than his own money.
To retrieve his
money back. That's the only thing that is relevant to him. It is you, when they begin to now put their cars on the decks for you, it is you that you begin to think about it, that no, I'm not going to take this is what I will do, but don't worry, I'm going to pay you. Like the conditions they will give to you most of the time, they don't care if you pay them and the business closed down. They don't care whether you finish paying them and your business shuts down. That's their own headache. Their own headache is to get back their whole money. But you will see many of the time, me and my friend were involved in some of these things, and we are going to talk back to the bank. They're going to write us letters. We write them back that this option you are giving to us, we can't take it. This is what we think that we can do. Because now, he's owing debt. That does not mean he won't pay the school fees of his children. That does not mean he won't feed his family. So that does not mean he's not going to do other things. So, but they will not look at it from that perspective. Okay. I'm taking a microcosm example so that we can understand what is happening.
The IMF and the World Bank
are doing. That it's not that they are evil. That's how money lenders operate, whether at international level, national level, or even at the local level of microfinancing. So now my friends are the one that will tell them that, no, I'm not going to follow this option. You don't have to give them the reasons. You just tell them this. Let's do it like this again. You write them letter. You see that it's going to be a movement of letter back and forth. They will send their own. They will send you their recommendations. We will look at it when we see that this thing is going to kill this man. We will tell them, no, we can't do it like this. They might tell you, we want you to pay so by this so time. We're going to tell them, no, we can't pay this by this time. What we can do at this time is this. But at the end of the day, we're going to meet at the middle ground. So that even the influencer is still servicing the debt. Yes, because he has the responsibility to pay back his debt. But also, his own family also must not suffer, and some his staff. There should be an equilibrium. They should meet at the middle ground. So that is what was what was happening then. But we've been unfortunate in this country that we have intellectual gap in leadership in this country. we've not been very fortunate to have people who are above average intellectually to be at the helm of affairs in this country.
You think so?
No, if we've had, we won't be at this point. That's the truth. Some things are self-evident. If we had people who are above average intellectually now, we understand politics, but we don't understand governance. And most of the time, all our attention is about politics, how to keep my job. We are not thinking about how to do the job.
That's your opinion.
That's my opinion.
For me, there might be a policy somersault.
They might say politics. If we've thought it through well, there won't be policies. What's policy somersault? It means you brought a policy that cannot stand the test of time, that cannot stand reality. That's what policy somersault is. Like you sat down in your office, you drafted something, you didn't put into perspective the local condition. You didn't localize the policy. So you just brought it. So policy somersault is also one of the aspects of we saying that there is a gap, intellectual gap in leadership in this country.
But you can't equally rule out the cases of maybe emergencies, some contingencies, some things that may just come up like unforeseen circumstances, so to say. For example, we had, sorry to cut you short, for example, during the COVID-19 experience, no country planned for COVID-19. That COVID-19 was ever becoming a reality in any country of the world, but it came and it affected a lot of. That's where I say that there may be a policy somersault. So that's why
one of the things you see is that when you are making any policy, you leave room for contingencies, emergencies. That's why you see that nations of the world, some cope with it better than the others. And thank God that it was not very severe here in Africa, because it would have been a very big disaster. Every nation, even in your family, you think about emergencies and you set aside funds for it, even in your own family. So let's now say this emergency came bigger than what you thought. At least you'll be able to cope with it to an extent than someone that didn't make any provision for emergency. So that's what I'm saying. So even a sign that you are intellectually sound to always prepare for emergency. So going back to what happened that led to this discrepancy we're talking about now. So now, IMF, we cannot engage. That's why the reason I was talking about intellectual gap is that we don't have leaders that can engage these international organizations.
Think so?
Yes, we don't. We don't have. Look at the past history of the leaders of this country. How many can really, really understand economy, understand international relations, understand international politics, understand all these things very well? How many? And if you as a leader does not really have, at least, it's not that you should be a professional in it, but at least a president or a leader of a country now. I'm not talking about governors. The way the Nigerian system is structured, governors don't need to be any fantastic. Any mediocre can be a governor, because it doesn't take anything. You go to Abuja, they give you money, you share it, give the civil servant, or you call contractor, come and do this road. And also you set some apart to give to noisemakers, the influencers, so that during the election they mobilize for you again, you win your second term. So you don't need you don't need to be very smart or to be above average intellectually to be a governor. But if you are a president, you need to know a little about everything, so that when these international agencies and their agents, all this, when they are bringing proposals to you and everything, you can be able to look at it holistically and say, no, this won't work, this work. These people, when we talk about these lenders, it's not that these things are not automated. They write to you, just like I give you an example of banks. They give you conditions. That, okay, this is our conditions. Yes, they want their money to be paid. So you yourself, you look at it that this condition they are giving to me, if I follow this condition, these are the repercussions, this is going to be the adverse effect on my people. And they too, they know that if you have a nation, is when you can pay debt. The reason why they can say they want to collect their money back is because there's a nation. If there's no nation, nobody can pay any debt. If Libya is owing anybody money today, they can't. The money is on hold. That's the truth. If nations that are at war, if they are only owing anybody, forget about that money is on hold until after the war. So you have to give them those criteria. That if the reason why you can even be talking about me repaying you is because we have a nation. If you put too much pressure on me and my nation should implode or explode under me, I will not be able to pay. They too, they can reason with you. And also, if you show sincerity, I'm not going to give you an example. There was a time a former military head of state in Nigeria, he went to an international conference and he met the former British Prime Minister at the side and told the woman that the woman should please help them, talk to IMF and World Bank that they should give Nigeria debt relief. And as he was telling the woman was just busy staring at his wristwatch. Because the British Prime Minister was putting on a very simple rubber wristwatch. I think maybe a Casio or something. And the Nigeria head of state that was begging for debt relief was putting on a golden Rolex. So this excess is what I'm talking about. So now, how can you be telling your money lender that you cannot pay and you are living flamboyantly? You go to a money lender in a private jet, the man comes in a business class, and you are talking to him that you give you debt relief. So now, that's what I'm saying. We have intellectual gap in leadership, and we don't have leaders that have been very sincere. I'm just being sincere now, that they've been very sincere. You can't be talking about you can't service your debt, and yet you are living anyhow. So those are one of the things that's why you see that some people will say, why is it that IMF, World Bank, they are not putting pressure on European nations and other continents that they should pay their money and giving them the kind of condition they are giving African nations? What you will see is this: when these people are more sincere than us in governing their people, when there is austerity measure in the country to repay debt, you can see that from the head to the last person, you can see that the policy is the same thing. You see cutting away a lot of excesses. But in our own, we will be telling our money lenders we don't have money to service debt, but they will come and see the way we are living. When we go for United Nations conferences, when we go for international conferences, we go in tens of private jets. We lodge in the best hotels, a lot of entourage, and you will see the people we are going to, they're very simple. So how will you? So they were not convinced. That's what I'm saying. So they need to tell us there is money. You just need to restructure so that you can pay our own money. Understand? So the burden of it was passed to the people, not to the leaders now. Because the leaders didn't cut down their own lifestyles. They didn't cut down on the cost of governance. So they have to, the simplest thing was to say, okay, we're going to restructure. Deregulation. It means government is going to cut down public spending. That's what the regulation is. Privatization, public enterprise should be sold.
Those are some of the conditions.
Those are some of the conditions. That's what Surgery Adjustment Program was all about. Entrenchment. They say, okay, your civil service is over bloated. So why do you have 10 people in this place? 2 people can do. You're a debtor. So you should cut away. So, okay, 2 people can do it. So now one of the conditions was now that, okay, some of your civil service, they should not be earning the same thing. Because before then, everybody was earning the same thing. If you're a federal civil service, everybody was earning the same thing. Now, they now say, okay, based on productivity, it should go. But what I notice about it, if you look at it, is that it's not really about productivity. Because you see that the highest paid among these MDAs are those that have to do with finances or revenue generating agencies. And it's not that they are doing extra work or anything. They're just fortunate to be in that ministry or agency. Understand? Like now, if you are, for example, if you are in NNPC, it's not that you are doing more work than somebody, let's say, maybe in NTA or maybe somebody in Federal Ministry of Health or something. Understand? And that's why you see that it wasn't based on the productivity. You know, Nigeria, the way we do our own thing. So that's what I'm saying. IMF, World Bank, all these people are not really our problems. They are not the one that will come in to do these things for us. They will make recommendations. So now, how do you do it? That's what I'm talking about, the gap, the intellectual gap in leadership now.
But okay, sorry to cut you short. If we are talking about intellectual gap in leadership on the part of our leaders, so to say, I will always want to dispute this, because if we talk about intellectual gap in the leadership of Nigeria, where is the place of those that are appointed, given appointment? I think the appointments given to some persons in Nigeria to occupy leadership position to help the leaders, so to say, is also part of intelligence or intellectual provision.
Yes, you're right. But if I appoint you, I must know a bit about what you are doing. for me to be able to tell you this thing you are doing is not right. Let me give an example of Lee Kuan Yew, the former prime minister of Singapore. The man, he said, at a time, he had to go for refresher courses in Harvard.
Prime Minister?
Yes, a prime minister, even as prime minister. He had to go for refresher courses in Harvard, in many of these biggest universities in the world. Why? He needs to understand what these very intelligent people were telling him. And he said what he discovered was that these people are very intelligent, but they are not always right. Yes. He said that was what he discovered. If anybody has his book, From Third World to First World, that was his memo about his time in leadership. He said, but if he didn't have a bit of knowledge about what they are saying, he's going to accept it hook, line, sinker. There is no one that is always right. Let me tell you this. The fact that you are very smart or you are very intelligent or you have the best CVs. I've met people who have very impressive CVs, but many of the things they're saying cannot work. That's the truth. And one of the people that I recommend, okay, now I brought somebody that was born in UK, for example. He was born in UK, was born in US, for example. He got all his degrees there. He lived all his life there. He's only familiar with the system there. I appointed that person as a Minister of Finance. That's going to be a very big problem. Because the truth is that he's only familiar with that environment. And the environment of here is different. Every nation has its own peculiarities. And that was what I was talking to you about when you were talking about policy somersault. What we work here is different from what we work in the US. Many of the policies we are importing is bringing us a lot of challenges because they are not localized. Many of these policies, we need to look at them with our own culture. Yes, the culture of the people have a way of affecting government policies. That's the truth. The way the people reasons has a way of affecting policies. That's the way they will accept it. That's their way of life. We're talking about contraceptive and reduce. Understand? You can see that it's still up to this point with all the enlightenment about contraceptives, about some people, their religious belief is against it.
That is religion, and that is their belief system.
That's their belief, and there's nothing you want to do about it. And so now, if you are building a policy from another country and you don't put into perspective the belief, the way of life of your people, you're going to have a big problem. So that's what I'm saying, that if we had the right leaders, they know the right people to select. One. And number two, these people, how do you supervise them? How do you supervise them? A work that is not supervised won't be done well. So, and even when people know that the person I'm working for, the person does not have any knowledge about these things, many people will do it anyhow. And insincerity will come in. Many of these appointees can even connive. And we've seen it. Not even about can connive. We've seen it. Many appointees conniving with these international agencies to shortcut the country.
So are we saying that those conditions brought
yes.
The discrepancies?
That was those conditions. We could not pay our debt. We were in debt to our eyeballs, and structural adjustment had to come, which was to reshuffle our civil service and many other things that I've mentioned. And when we got to the Third Republic was a still bat. The Fourth Republic, when we came in 1999, we continued with our structural adjustment program. We only gave it another nomenclature, which was NEAT. National Economic and Empowerment Development Strategy. It was a continuation of SAP, because by the time the former President Olusegun Obasanjo came in, one of his commitments was that Nigeria is going to repay our debt. And they gave us a condition that, okay, if you can repay some percentage, we are going to give you debt forgiveness. And you see that it happened during his time. So he committed to paying some percentage, and so now up to that time till now, what we've been following is just structural administration program. Forget about the nomenclature. It's the nomenclature that is changing. call it transformation agenda, we call it whatever we call it. The fundamentals is still structural adjustment program.
Okay. Now, if I may ask, how do we see the situation, that is the disparity in the salaries of public servants vis-a-vis with what happens on the global trend?
The truth is this. In my own personal study, what I say is that every nation has their own peculiarities. And that was what I was talking about, localization of policies.
Okay.
Every nation's, because the history of the people matters, where they are coming from matters. That's why if you look at India, India used to be together with Pakistan, Bangladesh. They used to be together. And if you look at the economy and the way they do their things, you will see their historical, you see some historical points from it. You see their way of life, you see their culture affecting what they do. If you look at Singapore, Singapore used to be together with Malaysia. You will see, if you look at it, you see there's some, if you study their history, you see, and you study their history vis-a-vis with what is happening now, you can still retrace some of the things, their uniqueness to where they are coming from. So every nation of the world, their policy differs. There are some nations that they have what we call general schedule, which means all the federal civil service, they are paid the same thing. They have the same schedule, payment schedule now for every civil servant. Some nations have just 70%. Like 70% of the civil servants are paid the same thing, where there are discrepancies in 20-something percent. And you see some countries, every professional group negotiates their own pay. Like if I'm an engineer, engineers have their own pay. Like engineers have their own payment plan. Level 1 engineer, level 2, it doesn't matter. Once he's an engineer with the government, he has his own payment plan. Whether he's working in NTA or HASO as an electrical engineer, or whether he's in NNPC as an electrical engineer, if so far that he's an engineer, it doesn't matter the ministry or department or agency of government that is working. So far he's an engineer, a certified engineer, is his union that negotiates with the government that this is what electrical engineers will be paid. This is what mechanical engineers will be paid, medical doctors. So there are some nations like that, professional, their unions are the ones that negotiate their pay. That this is our union, this is our professional body, this is our own payroll. And some nations are like that.
Okay, looking at this discrepancy in salaries of public servants, do you see it as a motivator or something that is discouraging other people from performing as responsibility, as civil responsibility, as public servants? What
determines the wage of a person? We need to look at that before we answer that question. Your years of training. Your years of training. How many years did I spend to train? A medical doctor will spend minimum of 6 to 7 years without ASU strike. Without ASU strike, we spend 6 to 7 years. An engineer will spend 5 years in the university. While some other, let's say, public admin and social sciences, they will spend 4. And also, don't forget, even the school, their school fees differ. Yes, their fees differ. You that you'll be using the lab, doing a lot of experiments, doing a lot of practicals, yours will be different from someone that is not always in the laboratory. The university will charge you more for that. Those are all the things that should tell, those are all the accumulation of those that tell you how much you'll be paid. And also the number of hours that you work, for example. Some people, their work is just 8 to 4. Like you, for example, now a journalist, you are there 7 days a week, 24 hours of the day.
Yes, there must be news. News must be on.
News, there must be news, because something's happening and you must report it. So you don't even have so now you don't have a work schedule. That's just the truth. You don't have work schedule. You don't have holiday. You don't even have leave. That's the truth. You have to be there 24 hours of the day. Now, an information, I'm just trying to give an example of what we can all relate to, because I don't love bringing big things that we can't relate to, because those are one of the problems of this country. Understand? We make very simple things complicated, and complicated things we make it look as if it's simple. So I'm trying to simplify it. Now, let's take you, for example, now. You're a journalist. You have the same number of years. You spend the same number of years with your colleague, and your work schedule is even tighter It's even, understand?
Yeah,
it's
we have work schedule, but we are committed to the job.
You are committed. Yeah. Now, let's now say, for example, now, your friend, your colleague, maybe you went to the same school and even passed more than him or her. Now is an information officer in CBN. And most of the time, since their work does not deal about giving out information every day or every time, so even his own work schedule, and workload is lower than yours. And he's earning times 3 or times 4 of your salary. Yeah, you won't be happy. Understand? Because there is no justification for it. If there is a justification for it now, you will not be hungry. If a university professor is earning more than you can rationalize it. That before he becomes a professor, the number of years, the number of training, the number of researches and all these things, you can understand it. But when you look at it, somebody that there's no justification for it and is any more, not even anymore, because in even my personal search, talking about the discrepancy, that there are some other nations that have discrepancy, but Nigeria's own is absurd and is ridiculous. Because you can be seen times 3, somebody on the same grade, somebody with the same experience, somebody with the same qualification and everything is any times 4 of his colleague on the same grade. It doesn't make any sense.
But some experts have come up with this argument that some persons working in particular ministries or particular places have little or no schedule at all when compared to others. How will you react to that?
Yes, that's what I was saying. That let's say that it was strictly based on productivity.
Okay.
It will have made a lot of sense. And that's why I gave you an example of you now. You spend the same number of years in the institution with someone. You have the same level of training with the person. You pay the same number, you paid the same school fees in school. And because it's just working in another, and you are both working for the government. You are both public servant, civil servant. Now, and your own workload is even heavier than his own or her own. And now, just because he's working in another ministry or agency or department than yours, apart from yours, now is any higher than you. And it's not as even any higher than you, it's any folds of your salary. So you're a human being, you'll be discouraged. That's the truth of the matter. Because there's no justification for it. Understand? If a medical doctor is earning more than you can still rationalize it. That I spent 6 years in training. I spent 4. He works the way I work also. There is no schedule for him, a resident doctor. He has to be on call every time. They can call him at any hour of the day. Understand? So you look at the risk he's exposed to also, because those are also the things that also comes together to determine the salary. So what is the risk that is involved with in everyday work? So when there is all these things are not there and somebody is earning more than you, just because he's working in a separate department from yours and both of you are civil servants. So it's not that he's even more productive than you. That's what I'm saying.
All right. Okay. We take a quick break now and we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Sir, can you please give us the permission to search you? You can go.
Is this a movie? If it happened.
Officer, I beg carry and go station. When our Oga come, you come meet am for there.
Hey, Mr. Man, I cannot do that.
Tell your Oga to come to our station when he returns.
Am I in a movie? If it happen,
Mama, please.
Mama, please.
Thank God you're here. Do the needful.
Mama, please, just 3 weeks
Madam,
now.
why did you invite us to come help chase your tenant now?
This is a civil matter now.
Is this a movie? If it happen,
If we follow
The new police law.
In case you just joined us, this is Business and Economy, where we update you with the workings of the Nigerian economy with a reference to the global. The guest, Mr. Abraham Olakpade, is still here with us, and we are looking at remuneration package of public workers. Mr. Mr. Olakpade, before we went on the break, you were trying to tell us what led to the discrepancies in workers' salary in Nigeria. But again, there's a popular quote by the former Prime Minister, Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, that until the children of the nobody who knows nobody become somebody, there may not be peace. How can you reconcile this quotation with the trend where job openings in certain agencies with fat pay tend to be reserved for the privileged?
You know, we need to make adjustment to these things, because the truth is this: all over the world, don't let me say all over the world, don't let me generalize, but in most nations of the world, government is the highest employer of labor. That's the truth. And the second fact I want us to look at is that government is disadvantaged. Why? Most people prefer to go to the private sector in most nations of the world, private sector pays better than the government. So the best brain, what I'm trying to say is that the best brain, they naturally flows towards the private sector, because the private sector can motivate them with money. So it means when the private sector, and because of globalization now, it means in every nation of the world, they are competing for your human resources. Every nation of the earth is competing for your human resources now because of globalization. Because somebody can be here and be working for any organization in the world, and he can even be recruited from here. So now, because of that, government, the best brain have gone to the private sector. So government is left to take from the rest. Now, if government does not now use merit, if government does not use merit to employ people, is shooting herself on the foot. Why is this? Government is the determinant of the economy, whether we like it or not. Government is the one that plays the leading role in the economy. The private sector only follows. But the government is responsible for policy formulation and implementations. So now, if the civil servants that are to formulate policies, implement it, monitor its impact, if we don't have the best brain there, it means the economy cannot move forward. The nation cannot move forward. So that is why government must make sure that there's meritocracy, that merit is used to employ, to recruit. Because if there is no level playing ground, and it just means some people, because they are rich or they know rich people or they can buy it, because don't let's deceive ourselves, there is job buying in Nigeria, in public, in civil, in public.
That's an allegation.
No, it's not. Everybody knows the truth. And they pay what you pay to buy the job depends on how lucrative the salary of the MDA is.
It's an allegation as far as
So I've seen people who bought. So it's not ESA. I've seen people who bought. So, and it depends on how much they are paying them. That's what they will charge you to pay.
Okay. Because of our time, sorry to cut you short, our time will not allow us to ask a lot of questions that people may just want to know. But in rounding, do you think that we can go back or return to the uniform salary structure for all employees, that is public servants in Nigeria? My
own take on that is this: government should look at peculiarities of work.
Okay.
What I will advocate for is this: engineers should have pay. Administrators should have pay.
Different structure.
Yes. Journalists should have their, whether you are working with, no matter MDA you are working with, if you're a journalist, you should have how much you are paid.
Okay.
If you're an electric engineer, no matter the MDA you are working, you should have a pay structure for them. That is what I will advocate for. A uniform, harmonized salaries for professionals. We have professional pay. That is what I is going to advocate for, because that is going to be what is going to bring at least a resemblance of justice, a resemblance of equity, because there will not be dissatisfaction. If I know that I am working with an MDA as an engineer, my fellow also in another place as an engineer is also working the same place. And government should also make sure allowances also can differ. Like now, somebody that is working 24 hours of the day, and somebody that goes to work by 8, or he does not even go
overtime.
Understand? And also somebody that is working, you post me to Abuja, I'm working with the same MDA, but I am in Abuja, somebody is in Osun State, or somebody is in Zamfara. Our cost of living differs.
Okay, our cost of living differs. He said, according to him, that salaries should be harmonized so that we can have equity and satisfaction in terms of job delivery. And with that, we have come to the end of today's edition of Business and Economy. The guest has been a public analyst, Mr. Abraham Olakpade. Mr. Olakpade, we thank you so much for honoring our invitation to be part of today's edition of the program.
It's my pleasure being here.
All right. And again, to our esteemed audience, I believe we have learned a lot from this sharing of ideas. Thank you so much for spending time with us. Have a great weekend. Have a great week ahead.